All right, so are you ready to dive deep into something that might just, like, completely change how you think about love?
Sounds intriguing. I'm all ears.
We're talking about romantic love today, but not in the usual, like, hearts and flowers kind of way.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So you sent over some audio lectures about critical thinking, right?
Yes.
And they touch on something I found pretty mind-blowing, this idea that romantic love and evolution are connected.
I can see how that would be surprising to some people.
So, like, what if, get this, what if all those, like, butterflies you feel and those late-night talks and everything, what if it's just our genes playing a trick on us
Hmm.
to make sure, they survive?
That's a pretty provocative thought for sure.
Yeah. So we'll be exploring the work of Steven Pinker.
Oh, interesting.
He's a cognitive scientist at Harvard, and he argues that that's exactly what's happening.
A bold claim. So how does he approach this idea?
Well, he basically looks at the mind like it's a product of evolution. Yeah. Kind of like a computer program that natural selection has been shaping for a long time.
I see. So from that angle, emotions would be less about our own happiness and more about survival mechanisms, even powerful emotions like romantic love.
Right. Exactly. It's less about finding the one and happily ever after, and more about, well, I guess, what's love's evolutionary purpose then?
Okay, so Pinker suggests that love, this feeling of love, it's like what he calls a software module. And he thinks it's hardwired into our brains, specifically by evolution.
Okay.
And it's there for one main reason, to make sure our genes keep going, to propagate them.
So it's like a biological imperative, not just this feeling we have.
Yeah, think of it like a lease agreement.
Lease agreement. Okay, that's not very romantic.
But bear with me. Think about it. A lease benefits both the landlord and the tenant. It keeps things stable, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, Pinker argues that romantic love, even with all the irrational feelings that go with it, it serves a similar kind of purpose. But in the marriage market,
So are you saying love is basically like a contract to keep us together long enough to have kids?
yeah, in a way. And here's the thing. It's the irrationality of love that's actually its strength from an evolutionary standpoint.
Okay, now I'm really confused.
Think about it. Love makes us do all sorts of things. We overlook flaws. We put our partner's needs first. We even make decisions that don't seem to make sense, logically speaking.
Okay, I can see that.
And all of that, those irrational feelings and behaviors, that's what binds us together. It creates a stable environment for raising children.
Hmm. But hold on a second. The lectures you mentioned also talked about adultery, right? People cheat even when they say they're in love. So how does that fit into this whole love is a lease idea?
That's a good point, and it's something people often bring up when they're talking about Pinker's theory. But adultery doesn't necessarily mean the whole idea is wrong.
Okay, so how do we make sense of it then?
Well, maybe it's about how commitment works. It's more complex than we think. Sure, infidelity can put a strain on that lease agreement of love, but the emotional pull often brings people back together. At least that's how it works a lot of the time.
So it's not that love is foolproof,
Exactly. It's more like it increases the chances of couples staying together.
even with all the bumps in the road.
Right. And think about this. People often say that a relationship ended because there wasn't any real love there. Actually, that supports Pinker's argument in a way. It shows that real romantic love can be a powerful force keeping people together, like an extra layer of protection on that biological lease.
Okay. I think I'm starting to see the logic here. But there's another thing I'm wondering about. What about all those societies where people have multiple partners? Polygamy, right? That's been pretty common throughout history.
You're right. That's a really interesting point. And it does complicate things when we're trying to explain love just from an evolutionary perspective.
Right. So if love is all about pushing us towards monogamy to raise kids, how do we explain polygamy? I mean, it seems like it goes against everything we've been talking about.
Well, it's important to remember that evolution doesn't always pick just one best strategy for everything.
Okay. So it's more like adapting to different situations.
Yeah, exactly. So just because polygamy was around doesn't mean monogamy wasn't working well too,
hmm
at different times and different places.
So it's like different tools for different jobs, right?
Exactly. Think of it like a toolbox, right? Monogamy's in there, polygamy's in there. Each one is good for a certain situation depending on, what's going on in that society.
Okay, I can see that. So like if you're in a place where it's hard to survive, maybe resources are scarce, then smaller families with monogamy would make more sense.
Exactly. But then in a place with lots of resources, maybe polygamy works better for that society, It's all about what helps people survive and reproduce, right?
Right.
And remember, evolution, it's not about being perfect. It's not about some utopia. It's just about what's good enough to keep things going.
So it's kind of messy. Yeah.
Yeah. And love, in all of this, it's like one of the tools we've developed,
Yeah.
to figure out relationships and make sure humans don't just disappear.
Okay. So while love might make us lean towards monogamy, it's not the only thing going on.
Oh, absolutely not. We
Yeah.
can't forget about culture, right?
Right?
Culture shapes everything, our values, our beliefs, even how we understand love itself.
That's true.
I mean, in some cultures, arranged marriages are totally normal. People get married, and then love comes later, not the other way around.
Wow.
So even something like love, which we think is so deeply personal, can be influenced by what society expects,
Yeah. So maybe focusing just on biology is too simple when we're trying to understand love.
You got it. It's not just nature, it's nurture too, right? It's both. It's our genes mixing with our environment, with all the cultural stuff around us.
So where does that leave us with, what's his name, Pinker? Is his theory just one small piece of the whole picture then?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, Pinker's framework is definitely useful. It helps us think about why we experience romantic love and how it might have helped humans survive, right?
Hmm.
But like we've been talking about, there's so much more to it than that. The fact that polygamy existed, the way culture impacts things, it all shows that love is way more complicated than we first thought.
I feel like we've gone through a lot. We started with love as this like biological contract, right?
Yeah.
All about survival. But then we had to think about polygamy, about culture. And it seems like the more we learn, the more questions we have. It's like we started thinking about love in this cold, hard science way, like it's just a contract or something.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing that it's way more nuanced than that.
Right. It's almost like we had to take love apart to really understand how it all fits together.
Yeah. But it also makes me wonder, like, does knowing all this stuff about evolution and culture, does it make love less meaningful?
That's a really great question, and it's something a lot of people wonder about. Does knowing how something works, like, I don't know, the science behind a sunset or a flower, does it make it less beautiful?
I don't think so, personally. If anything, I think it makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
You see all the complexity, the intricate details, and it's like, wow.
Exactly. It's like you have this whole new level of appreciation. And I think that's true for love, too. Understanding where it comes from, how it might have evolved, the cultural stuff, it just adds more depth to it.
So instead of thinking about love as this perfect ideal, we're kind of acknowledging that it has this practical side to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about seeing how nature and nurture, our biology and our culture all mix together to create this thing we call love.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
But I think it makes the whole thing more fascinating, honestly.
I agree. And it brings up a really interesting question, I think. If love is at least partly something that evolved, to help us survive, does that mean it can still change?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Could love itself be evolving, along with us?
Yeah.
As our world changes, as technology changes, could we even see totally new forms of love in the future?
That's something to think about for sure. It's been amazing diving into all this stuff about love with you.
The pleasure was all mine. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into love, evolution, and everything in between. It's been quite the journey.
And who knows what the future of love holds? That's something to ponder, isn't it?
It is. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.